If you follow my channel, you know I always have some kind of thesis to build my video around. You know what my thesis is this time? This game absolutely rips. This is one of my favourite games of all time, and it's an absolute crime that you've probably never heard of it before. Don't feel bad, you're not alone. Outside of its small but passionate fan base, it's barely known, let alone talked about. The fact that we as a society let this be relegated to indie cult status is one of the biggest crimes against gaming since the development of microtransactions. This is one of the most thrilling, rewarding, fun, and goddamn beautiful things that money can legally buy you. And it's better than most of the illegal thrills out there too. Trust me, I've checked. And there is no reason for it to be so niche. I defy anyone with 2 working thumbs to not fall in love with this game. Unless you've got photosensitive epilepsy, I'll give you a pass then, because I mean, just look at this thing. Look, just go buy it now. You can complete the whole campaign within the Steam refund window, buy it, play it, and if you aren't gagging for more by the end of it, I give you full permission to refund it and come yell at me in the comments. You're still here? You need more convincing? Fine. So what is Distance, apart from one of the worst names for a thing from a search engine perspective since Matt Johnson had the audacity to name his band The? Well, superficially, it's an arcade racing game. Don't come here looking for any kind of grounded experience. Its complete disregard for friction alone should be enough for any self-respecting physicist to recoil in horror, and that's before we start ninja flipping from walls to ceilings like a terrified spider on an amphetamines binge. So yeah, the cars can jump in this game, which is cool enough to sell on its own, but we're just getting started. You can jump, flip, fly, you can grind on rails and pretend you're playing a bizarro world Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game from the sentient car dimension, and you'll do all that and more while moving at such breakneck speeds with the sole goal of getting to the finish line as fast as possible before getting crushed, sliced, or otherwise obliterated by Distance's endless variety of futuristic death traps. Oh yeah, the death traps. So along with everything else, Distance is somehow a sci-fi horror game? Well, at least if you stay on the developer-made campaigns. Let's not get into the incoherent madness of what the community has cooked up over the years just yet. So yeah, Arcade Racer doesn't really do it justice. Speedrunning sci-fi horror car parkour would be more accurate, but that's a more disgusting mouthful than the time I misread that curry recipe. It'd be easier to say there's nothing else like it in the goddamn world, and genre tags are stupid anyway. You might think, with all the balletic nonsense this car can do, that it would be a fiddly mess to try and control, but nope. The controls are absolutely airtight, intuitive, precise, and just an all-round joy to interact with, no matter what absurdity is coming flying at you at uncomfortable miles per hour. While you're on the ground, everything works as you'd expect. Pushing left turns you left, right turns you right, forwards you go forward. You're smart, I'm sure this is not coming as a shock. Well, as soon as you're airborne, everything switches. Left, right, forward and back, instead let you tilt for some precision air manoeuvring. Or just hold one of those bad boys down and you'll do a truly majestic barrel roll and no doubt look cool as hell for the few seconds that you have left to live. But then whenever you're airborne you can press jump again to switch to flight mode and the controls change again, and I'm sure this does sound like a lot, but look, if I can figure this out and make it look as cool as this, I've no doubt you can. It took me 2 years to learn to tie a tie and I still suck at it. I routinely trip over absolutely nothing. I don't know what my special stats would be, but dexterity certainly wasn't a priority for whatever malevolent entity cooked me up. I can't promise it won't take a bit of time to click, but when it does, goddamn, it just feels so incredible to fling your car around. My one and only controls gripe is with the boost button. So lots of arcade racers have some kind of boost or nitrous or other techno-babble go-fast button to use for an intermittent burst of barely survivable g-force. But those magnificent bastards at Refract thought, well, speed boosting is awesome, therefore not speeding is not awesome. Therefore, if we want our game to be more awesome, you should be speed boosting every second in game. Why has no one thought of this before? And that sounds, well, dumb. But damn if it doesn't work better than it has any right to. So your boost in Distance is technically finite, do it long enough and you'll overheat and explode in a pretty underwhelming way. But anytime you pass through a checkpoint, your overheat meter is reset and you are a-okay to keep on mashing the boost button like it owes you money. And the way each and every level in this game is designed is for these checkpoints to be perfectly placed so that you literally never have to release your death grip on the A button. Which feels pretty damn amazing. You constantly feel like you're redlining, pushing your car to the limit in the name of speed, just barely making it to the next checkpoint over and over. And yeah, it's a trick because you're almost never actually at risk so long as you aren't taking scenic detours, no matter how much the warning siren blares at you, but damn, it's a good trick. But holy hell does it start to burn after a while. If you'd like to experience wanker's cramp in exactly one finger, well, you're someone with pretty inscrutable goals in life, but congratulations, you found your dream game. I've been playing Distance a whole lot to get footage for this video and also because, again, it rules. But I think my thumb is starting to get abs. So what are you doing in Distance, apart from doing awesome full car kickflips into walls and speeding wincingly fast into saw blades? Well, these core mechanics wouldn't mean jack if you didn't have something cool to do with them. And as you can clearly tell from the background footage, these are not exactly simple A to B milk runs. There's an impressive variety of obstacles, each of which requires a different response. Some you need to jump, some you need to dodge, some require you to execute an awesome flip, dodge and then jump for good measure. It's a bit like an incredibly high-stakes game of Simon Says, except with fiery death on the line rather than being laughed at by your friends. To be fair, lots of them are functionally equivalent. Smashing at high speed into a spinning blade covered in disco lights is going to have a pretty similar effect to slamming into the much more boring wall next to it. But this doesn't much matter because the core movement mechanics are so fun to engage with. No matter how many times you have to weave between barriers or flip from wall to ceiling to floor, it always feels great and there's always room for finding your own lines or solutions to the problems racing up to meet you. Pure moment-to-moment thrill was clearly the focus for Distance, but believe it or not, there is actually a story here too. And it's, well, narrative is not exactly Distance's strong suit. There are 3 campaigns on offer here with distinct vibes, but also varying amounts of damns to give about anything apart from looking cool. The paper-thin framing for Campaign 1, by far the chunkiest of the 3, is that you're trying to escape some kind of bizarre, barely Euclidean, space-based megastructure, all while being tormented by some kind of nightmarish entity that is desperate for you not to escape, or at least determined to make your escape look cool as hell. And I'm sure someone knows what's going on here, but I certainly don't. It's something to do with teleportation tech, a virus that maybe isn't a virus, and maybe even some time loop shenanigans to boot, I'm not quite sure. Campaign 2 is a lot more straightforward narratively, thanks to its painfully clunky opening. Long ago, a great city was built. A guardian was created to protect and serve the city. It was supposed to be perfect, but something went wrong. Don't worry lads, I see the problem. You installed too many of those evil red LEDs again. When will you learn? Campaign 3 almost completely does away with having any plot whatsoever. You start racing towards another sci-fi megastructure, pursued by some kind of drone. A couple of levels later, you explode some kind of pulsating MacGuffin, apparently by looking at it, but probably by uploading something unpleasant to the mainframe or whatever. Then you leave, everything falls apart, the end. But if it sounds like I'm roasting this game I love for having a half-baked plot, well, I guess that's exactly what I'm doing, but it doesn't matter at all because the vibes are absolutely impeccable. There's barely a frame of this game I wouldn't happily hang on my wall. If I wasn't a father, my walls weren't already plastered with the insane scribblings that my daughters would insist are pictures of me. Yeah, the design of these places does not make one gnat's lick of sense, but how could you possibly care when it looks this amazing? Whether it's up in decaying space stations, racing through neon-drenched cities, or down in the brutalist bowels of unnamed facilities, the mainline content in this game is just stunning and has a bizarrely strong sense of place and even, groundedness. Which sounds like a daft thing to say about a world that consists exclusively of A to B spaghettified racetracks, but it's true. The music is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. The OST is a non-stop string of pulsating electronic bangers, all composed by one of the principal developers on Distance, Jordan Hemingway, which is pretty damn cool, but also punts him cleanly into the category of annoyingly skilled people. Incredible game designer and composer, leave some skills for the rest of us, you talented prick. And in a beautiful touch, so much of the in-game action is synced to the soundtrack. The lights pulse with the beat, lasers sway back and forth in perfect sync. Playing this game often feels like getting to direct and star in a series of dope-ass surreal music videos, albeit ones from a really car-obsessed director. And both with the soundtrack and the levels they accompany, there's some impressive variety of the vibes on offer. Sure, it's mostly pulse-poundingly intense, but there are some serene sections, some somber ones, and notably, especially in Campaign 1, some literal descent into out-and-out horror. You might think that horror is going to be pretty hard to pull off given that you're playing as a sentient backflipping car, but it pulls it off with such ease that you'd think it was as natural a combination as beans on toast or YouTubers and belaboring a simple point. Abyss is the standout level here. Someone mischievous, or maybe just environmentally conscious, has cut the power, leaving us with only crumbling tracks, deactivated weapons, and sinister structures emerging from the shadows. After getting used to all of the LED-lit intensity, it's genuinely jarring in the best possible way. And Jordan, that talented git, is more than up for meeting the mood of the soundtrack, turning the uncanny experience into something truly haunting. But Abyss ain't done. Things get weirder and weirder. We slip intermittently into parallel realities, or maybe it's the past or future, but who knows, and frankly who cares. It's creepy, cool, and I love it. And then, after some not so subtle environmental storytelling, we get the piece de resistance, if you'll pardon the mispronounced French. A truly chilling minute-and-a-half long sequence, which I really don't want to spoil. Actually, don't I? Okay, how about this? If I've halfway persuaded you to give this game a go, skip forward a couple of minutes, but if you're just here for the yapping and this video is playing on your phone on the other side of the room, stop cleaning the dishes or trimming your nails or whatever else it is you freaks get up to while I'm droning on in the background and check this out. See? Wasn't that sick as all hell? Ready for the bad news though? That is basically the first and last time that Distance experiments with going pure horror. Don't get me wrong, there are other spooky bits here and there, but man, I was really hoping for more of this. I hadn't actually played campaigns 2 and 3 before making this video, because they were released since I'd last booted this masterpiece up, and I had my fingers, toes, and everything else I could grab crossed, that one of them would lean hard into pure sci-fi eldritch horror again, but nope. They're still good, great even, but they basically just stay in the pulse-pounding sci-fi action lane rather than getting experimental with the vibes again. Which sucks, because clearly when it wants to, Distance does horror so incredibly well. Why have you got to tease me like this? I do think Distance is best in class when it comes to arcadey races, but it's got to be admitted that if you want to find alternatives, you're not going to struggle. But where else are you going to get car-based sci-fi eldritch horror? Seriously, where? I'll wait. Oh, Pacific Drive, you say? Well, okay, fine, there's 2. You happy now, you pedant? But not only is there not enough horror in this bad boy, there's arguably not enough game at all. The main complaint you'll see about Distance Online is just about the brevity of its main campaigns. You'll have Campaign 1 wrapped in just over an hour, Campaign 2 in half of that, and for this video I did Campaign 3 in just under 12 minutes, despite having never played it and managing to die on one single jump a dozen or so times. Which has gotta be said is on the slim side. If I can complete your game in one lazy lunch break, then that's enough to raise some eyebrows. But I think it would be unfair to say there's not enough on offer here. Once you're done with the campaigns, you can dive straight into the arcade challenges where you'll find well over 100 bespoke maps for speeding, stunting, and incompetently flailing your way through. Some made by the Refract team themselves, other selected community editions. And the quality is, well, mostly it's great, and there are plenty of awesome highlights. At its best, it feels like a lovely sample platter of different vibes you can pull off with the Distance formula. Some feel like they'd fit neatly into the main campaigns, but most are significant departures. And there are some absolutely standout tracks that feel like they could be inspiration for whole new campaigns. But it's gotta be said there are some real stinkers in here. Some are mechanically fun but look like the hottest of hot ass, but when they are flying by this quickly, hopefully you won't care. A couple are just straight up terrible. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with putting this haunted house level in here as mainline content. It feels like a joke, but if it is, I'm not laughing. I'm sure it was hard to torture Distance's level editor into building this, but it looks bad, plays bad, and I hate it. Picking levels from a menu screen is also just necessarily much less immersive than playing through the seamless campaigns. This, plus the occasional clunky design of the tracks themselves, as well as the wildly shifting aesthetics, sadly makes it feel like side content, no matter how high quality it is. It feels like I've sat down for a meal at a fancy restaurant and the first course has completely blown me away, but then it turns out the meal is over and I'm still goddamn hungry. The waitstaff point out there's an all-you-can-eat buffet in the next room over, and most of it looks delicious, but you're only allowed to take one small plate at a time, and some of them are poisoned, and wow, I'm really bad at metaphors, aren't I? Distance was in early access for nearly a decade, and that time in the oven did let them polish some stuff, especially the core mechanics, to a mirror sheen. But the way content is delivered still feels a bit early accessy. I know I'm being an armchair critic as well as a greedy little pig, but I'd dearly have loved some kind of meta progression or justification for doing all the stuff that's been relegated to the arcade cabinet. Give me a world map to select these from and some kind of number to increase, and I'd be playing this until my right thumb was permanently locked into a useless claw, good only for jamming hard on the boost button and doing my Bill Clinton impression. There are dozens, if not hundreds of hours of totally unique and unforgettable fun to be had here if the core mechanics speak to you. You just have to be okay with doing it almost purely for its own sake. I'd love to be able to recommend this game unreservedly, and mechanically it really is a masterpiece. But its brief campaigns and messy post-game content do hold it back. I'd almost find it easier to recommend if the campaigns, especially Campaign 1, weren't so great. Their curated vibes, mechanical and thematic escalation, and yes, the slightly shoddy world building really do elevate the mechanical perfection sitting at the heart of the game. But as soon as you're really getting into it, the experience just abruptly ends, just like this video.